Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Miners Leading the Way in Material Tracking Innovation event. It's very exciting because we have three distinguished guests with us today, including our 2019 Project of the Year Award winner, Peytec CEO Peyman, as well as two distinguished panelists from Hudbay Materials and McEwen Mining. This is the kickoff for our 2020 Engineering Project of the Year Awards. So it's really, really exciting to be here with you all. Thank you for coming on a Tuesday evening to join us for this unique and exciting event. Just as a note, this webinar is being recorded, so just keep that in mind. Just as housekeeping items, please mute your mics and turn off your webcam during the panel presentation unless you are a panelist. Please turn them back on during the Q&A meet and greet sessions to increase engagement. And note that, again, the webinar is being recorded. So tonight, myself, I am Sharon Chen. I'm the Awards and Recognition Director for PO York Chapter. I, along with Hassan Tavana and Reza Mahmoudpour, we are the moderators or facilitators for this evening's session. So I mentioned earlier that this event is the kickoff for our Engineering Project of the Year Award. So what is the award? So every year, the York Chapter, we are looking to recognize a engineering project that was completed within 2020 that is excellent. It can be substantially completed in a phase or just completed in general. Companies with an operational presence in the Greater Toronto area and with projects that have that were overseen by a licensed professional engineer in Ontario are eligible. The application form is very easy to fill out. You can do it in a couple of hours. There's no application fee. It's due next year, actually, in January 20th, 2021. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Or email awards@poyork.com or go to the poyork.com website to check out the details. So before we introduce our panelists, if you have a question throughout the panel, we ask that you jot them down, but don't enter them until the end of the first part of the panel. There will be a Q&A session where you can enter the questions that you have either in the chat or ask them via voice in person. We will be moderating that later. But please hold on just in case your answers are answered, your questions are answered throughout the panel itself. Okay. Sorry. Let's presenter review. Okay. Can everyone still see the screen?
Yes.
Mike, this one, right? Okay. Perfect. So the first of our two panelists is Mike Jankowski, and he is the manager of technology development at Hudbay Minerals Inc. And he has worked 25 years in the mining industry and 14 in the manufacturing industry. He possesses a vocation in electronic engineering and more recently has worked 14 years in information technology and as an enterprise architect and 1.5 years of technical services. He enjoys a two-pronged role in being responsible in facilitating the creation and implementation of technology roadmap, as well as lead the creation and execution of the Hudbay mine and mill process improvement initiatives. Since the creation of his role, he has increased daily production at the Lalor mine and gold recovery at the Stall mill. Our second of two distinguished panelists tonight is Kelly Wotton, Director of Business Transformation at McEwen Mining Incorporated. Kelly has worked over 15 years in senior management positions in the mining industry and 6 years in the medical industry. Kelly was the technical lead for the Kirkland District and Englehart District Hospitals for the Wotton build for Meditech for the 7 hospitals in Northern Ontario prior to moving to the mining industry. Kelly's vision is to eliminate the digital divide between the open pits and underground operations, to improve safety and productivity by empowering the mine's management teams with real-time data about the environment, people, and machines. Kelly is working towards the ultimate automated mine, eliminating the risk to the people and the environment. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome these 2 panelists. So I'm going to stop share my screen and pin Mike as well as. Okay. Spotlight for everyone. Okay, Kelly, you're spotlighted. And Mike has to start video. And okay. So the first question for the panel, and I'm starting with Mike here, is what is Canada's stance in the mining industry right now? Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, and to start off with the part in the brackets, Canada is and always has been a leader in the global mining industry, and it's evidenced by our disproportionately large number of successful mining companies that we have here and abroad. We have approximately, I think the last figure I saw was just under 430,000 people working in mining, and we're contributing roughly 5% of our gross domestic product to the tune of 100 billion. We rank in the top 5 in over a dozen metals productions in the world. And I believe we still have the most mineral investment dollars coming into Canada than any other country. So, and one of the reasons is that we're a very mining friendly jurisdiction. We have access obviously to an abundance of resources, and our people are known across the world as people who like to find new ways of doing things. And that's kind of summed up in a conversation I had with a coworker in the Jiading industrial zone in China who made that observation. And we've seen a significant number of Canadian mining organizations kind of fall into foreign ownership, but Canada is always going to remain a leader if we continue to support innovation and career development. And because mining is baked into the culture of many a city and town in Canada. That's what I think.
Thank you for that, Mike. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
That was well said, Mike. Just to add to that, I believe, you look at the mining industry and Canadians and the employees that are there. Canadian miners are picked up at a variety of mining locations across the world. We're known as the best miners, the best hard rock miners. We're always innovative in our technology and our approach to things. I think that, and going back to jurisdictional, as McEwen bases, we're in Mexico and Argentina and the US, we face a lot of jurisdictional restrictions, definite pushback from governments and how they want to deal with it, which is kind of why Canada is a very safe mining zone and a very safe area for, companies to invest in and stockholders to, invest in companies and develop that whole infrastructure that we have in the mining community and in the world, and why Canada is very outstanding in that projection of mining, right? So that's it.
Thank you very much for your responses. The second question is, why is it important to track material within a mine? Kelly, let's start with you this time.
Sure. So one of the big things, and I can jump right into kind of Peyman's and product of the muck puck. One of the big things and challenges we face is the movement of material. And, Peyman came to, I went to a mining conference in Sudbury with Westburn, and Peyman did a presentation on warehousing, moving of material, and the ability to track that movement right down to like centimeters. Whereas, you know, right now in the industry, you know, if you walk into a room with your cell phone, you know, it doesn't matter, you're picked up by an access point. It doesn't tell you where you are or where that product is moving. With payments technology and the MuckPuck, it allows us that visibility into the whole mining gambit. So one of the things that we faced in a mining company that I was with before that we started working with the Peytec system was we had the movement of material waste product we found. We were moving the waste and they would end up dumping it down. We have two side-by-side rock breakers where one is waste and one is ore. So the issue is that, you know, if one was full or whatever, we didn't know what was going on. The driver might forget what was in his vehicle or whatever. So then the material would be dumped, then it would be hauled to surface. Then from surface, it would be dumped into another pile, and then it would go into processing. Our issue was, you know, when you move that material, we were probably costing us $70,000 to bring up waste. And then if you're processing it, putting it through the processing plant, which means the crusher, the mill, you're not gaining any value. So we looked at other technologies that were out there, and I won't mention them by name, but they basically, there was a little tag that would go into the pile. And then when it was being put through the crusher, it would say, oh, well, this is waste. Well, at that point, it was too late. The cost was already there to get it to surface. The cost was already there in processing. You were already committed to running it through that whole process. So from that perspective, you know, it caught my attention that we could build on Peyman's warehousing thing to develop a system that, you know, his pucks can withstand under 4 tons of waste rock or rock. The truck can drive over them. And the ability is that we built the system so that when we were transporting, you have to understand that we had, like at Kale Gold, you had 2 kilometers of passes to get to basically to your rock breaker, and then you've got a kilometer or a mile up to surface to bring this ore. So if they're dumping in the wrong location, it was costing us money. And it wasn't, you know, it's just human error mostly, you know, because we had the same areas that would be reused for handling of the muck underground or the movement of materials. So today, or half the day, this could be ore, and then half the day, this could be waste in that same, you know, in that same closet or that same area. So what we developed was that, you know, from the MuckPuck system is the movement of that material as the truck pulled in to do its dump. We had set up a, you know, a red light, green light system where that control was visible to the driver. So he would be warned before he dumped the waste or the ore into the wrong pass. And that is what really put a lot of control around it. Not only that, you know, the next step was to tie it into our limb system and our historian system that was in the mill for processing. So the next step was, you know, and I looked at it as like from, you know, the processing part in the mill, after it's gone through the crusher, or even when it's sitting on the ground waiting, you know, we could run into problems with maintenance in terms of, let's say, you know, we're at quarter end, you're trying to meet the guidance that you set out to the market, but we're coming back and we're saying, we have a problem with a pump or a motor. And, you know, it would be up to the GM whether he would say, okay, shut down, fix the pump, fix the bearing, fix something. Or whether he's saying, well, no, we got to meet our guidance and I don't know what's sitting on the ground. We know there's material on the ground, but I don't know if it's 3 grams per ton or 20 grams per ton or what's going to be processed through the mill. So from that perspective, you know, I could look at it and I could say, well, look, I can tell you what's on the ground, because before we pulled that ore out, we actually ran it through the lab. So we've done an assay on it, and that assay would tell us what that material's worth or what that is. So I could come back to him and say, look, I need 4 hours to take a motor down to replace a bearing. It's going to cost us $500 and $1,000 in labor. And in that 4 hours, I can tell you, if you pull from this muck pile and process this, that we can pick up the difference in costs. And so we can afford a 4 to 8 hour shutdown, or we could say we could run our mill faster, running at, you know, 55 tons per hour to running at 85 tons per hour for a short period of time. So we could make that cost back so that, you know, you have that complete circle of information going into your system and from your system, and allowing you to do preventative maintenance, allowing you to do maintenance, and not running something till you blow up that motor and that pump. Instead of it costing you $500 in labor, now it's cost you a day of downtime and, you know, a $4,000 pump or motor. And that's where this system comes in, of the tracking of material. It's not just the movement underground and stopping, you know, where that material goes, but now it's on surface and being able to stockpile it and saying, I have visibility on each stockpile. Now I can run that through and get my processing in place. And that even ties, you know, further into, you know, the processing part is, if I know that, you know, I'm running lighter material, or what material I'm running through, I can control my reagents, which again, you know, we looked at, you know, at Cal Gold, a 3% cost and savings of reagents, you know, around that portion of it. And then we looked at, you know, the cost savings of downtime, the being able to run the material and run, you know, so you're not running out, and you're being able to do what you plan to do and meet those guidance of the market so that you can keep your stock up. That's it.
Thanks, Kelly. Mike, what are your thoughts on this question?
In our situation at Hudbay, we have a lot in similar with what Kelly described there. As well, we have some differences. To start with what we have in common, we do share the risk of diluting our ore grades by having waste rock inadvertently dumped into an ore pass or at the rock breakers. So we intend to, when we have waste campaigns, we intend to chuck in the muck pucks that we get from Peytec's company as well. And we hope we never detect them, because if we do detect them, it means we're at risk of penalties from diluting our ore. Now, that being said, if we do detect that ore waste was dumped into an ore pass, we now have the information to respond to prevent it from happening again, because we'll know what date it came from. We'll know which stope in the mine it came from, so we can go back and identify the crew that was on, the supervisor, and take preventative action. One different challenge that we have is Hudbay has recently announced an expansion of our gold reserves at our Lawler mine. So in the past, we were primarily copper focused, but now we're becoming primarily more so gold focused. So we have bought and refurbished a second mill for our Lawler mine. And we now need to send gold to one mill, and then we send our base metals, including copper, to another mill. So what we do is we chuck the muck puck in at the rock breakers, which is then goes down to a conveyor and gets put up to a hoist and hoisted up to surface. We don't hoist waste up to surface, we only hoist ore. And what we're doing is we have a sensing gateway from Peytec. And what it will do is it will close a set of relays when one of the tags is sensed, which means twice a shift we are switching between base metals and gold from a hoist operation perspective. And we are using that technology to track what materials in the ore handling system. And what we can do is when we sense that relay closing, we use PLCs to basically advance so many more skips and then shut down the ore handling system to allow the operators to change the output feed, so we can fill bins with base metals, or we fill a bunker with gold, and then they get taken to the separate mills. And if we run the risk of putting the wrong ore to the wrong mill, it can quickly get north of $1 million in lost recovery in gold, for example. So it's quite an easy payback period on that. The other thing I can think of, and this is a bit future speculation on my part, we're very focused on asset intensity, asset availability, asset utilization, the whole OEE model. But I think as we maximize that and we're more happy with where we're performing in that regard, we may actually start to focus on what I call the speed of the ore through the operation, to help identify opportunities to minimize variation. On the process improvement side of my role, I think this can function as a catch-all to identify emerging issues that we might not be squarely looking at core KPIs today. And of course, there's another reason, so you don't get buried under it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this next question you've both touched on a bit in answering the question that you had just answered, and it is, what are some technical and non-technical challenges in terms of communication, security, and wireless connectivity that exists in a mine operation? Mike, let's start with you this time.
Well, spent a good part of my day on this today. The infrastructure is what everything else is built upon, so it's got to be solid. Starting from covering a mine, whether it's open pit or underground, you cover it as much as possible. But when you're doing so when the mine is already operating, it places stress on teams that don't always work together, like electrical and IT, and it can expose gray areas between them. For example, what to do if we can't sense where a vehicle is. We've enacted workflows and stuff like this, but we find the project managers in those type of projects, they need to manage expectations and variances in plan because production always takes priority. We may have a plan to go and cover this level today, but production has a change in course and we take a back seat, and that's acknowledged. We're not arguing that. But it's very hard to set deadlines to build networks underground. It's also essential to have a capability to proactively monitor each part of your infrastructure such that people know when a part of it's not functioning. And it shouldn't only be, shall I say, IT that's aware of this. We need to put that information in the hands of what a role that we call a coordinator, so that they know where they're blind and where they're not. And just to give an example, when we started this, I would ask our network specialist, how do you know when a part of the infrastructure isn't functioning? He's like, well, I have to look. And I said, well, I came from, bigger company, and we hired students and used freeware solutions to give you a picture of the world. And if something's red, you click on that, you see North America, you click on that, you see New Jersey's down. What I want to see is a 3D map of our mine in the hands of the actual people doing the work that proactively lets them know where we're blind and where we're not. But that's kind of a challenge from building and supporting a network underground. Things tend to get lost, broken, and stolen quite easily as well. Did you want me to also comment about security and non-technical things, or pass it back and forth?
Feel free to comment on that as well.
Okay, from a security perspective, probably Kelly, you've been through this, and I know some of my other colleagues have at other mines. Every mine goes through what I call a bar mitzvah at some point, where they mature to the point where they need to build a demilitarized zone between their kind of process control network and their corporate or fluff network, as we call it. And that's usually, I know at Valley, for example, it was a year-long argument, for lack of a better term. And that's between IT and the business. And some companies allow networks to converge their networks at an access point layer. So you can have one access point that broadcasts multiple security identifiers, and different devices will connect to the security identifier that is designated as appropriate for their level of sensitivity. And then those multiple security identifiers, like, is just the name of a wireless network. They'll be routed to different virtual networks. And some companies like ours will go as far as doubling our spend by not converging our networks. So we maintain an air gap. We have multiple networks underground, but each one has their own set of access points, even if they're right beside each other. So from a security perspective, we have to go pretty far, because we know that there are actors out there that will target the Canadian mining industry, and we got to stick together. From a non-technical perspective, I'd have to say the biggest thing that comes to mind right now would be thinking about the various components of a network at a mine site. So the fiber, the copper that's pulled down the stopes and gets damaged often, the switches and the access points. It requires teams to work together, which always require coordination. When you add in the fact that we've got, day shift and night shift, and then we have 4 different crews as well, that has to pass between hands and between shifts in a seamless fashion. And we find it a constant challenge to know what part of a network in progress requires the attention of which team. So we're managing it and we're advancing workflow, but it's something I want to get better at. That's it.
Thank you. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
Well, Mike hit a lot of the main points. From our perspective, from communications and security and wireless connectivity, there's a lot of companies out there that are supporting that, and there's a lot of different, meshes and stuff that they're building. But I think, one of the big things that, a lot of people don't understand is that, as much as Trudeau's brought in and saying, they're building, the infrastructure out to the remote sites, mining is remote. Mining is, potentially, it's not right in the city. It's not, you don't have all those fiber feeds that are feeding your facility, and being able to get, and that's one of our challenges, to get that information or that data up there so that we can actually do the data analytics or pull that data in so that corporate has the visibility on the mining operation. And then and Mike's touched on too, like, the separation or air gap networks, like when you're doing remote mucking or remote control of equipment or teleremote or automated equipment, it has to be isolated and separated at that point so that you don't have those bad actors, but it's also, you don't want somebody shutting down your teleremote system because they're trying to watch Netflix or something like that, or they're doing something with their phone on your network, or they're bringing down, or there could be control issues around, a PLC that's doing a broadcast by accident, there's something that's gone wrong and then that's affecting. So, the segregation of networks is a big issue. And then that segregation also helps though with the security type thing. There's a lot of companies out there that help around security. There's specific ones for PLC networks versus the ones that would work like Sentinel, that would work specifically for business type LAN security around that stuff. And I guess, from a non-technical standpoint, touching on that a little bit, I guess it's the relationships. You've got to have, good relationships with your vendors, with Peytec, with Rockwell, or, Triton Innovations. If you're trying to do robotics, you've got to build those relationships, and you've got to have somebody that you trust on the outside to help you with that. But it's your internal teams, like he touched on the separation between electrical and IT, that IT-OT convergence is something that's been going on for quite some time now. And it's something that we're building on and building that team to move forward with. Because, the old days PLCs were all switch legs and 120 volts and electrical. So electrical took care of that. Now it's all, SQL servers and, PLCs that are running, everything's on Ethernet or TCP/IP control. So it's becoming more of an IT and OT operation that works together. So you have to build that internal team. And I've had the privilege of working with, Graham and Sebastian and a few people that, Dan and Eric, and even that, the ability from, you're still at a certain level and I'm at corporate, but you still have to have that corporate sponsorship. And I really have that with, Rob McEwen and Peter and Anna now that we're building our infrastructure and building money to get that. So it's really that team atmosphere and that build that you need to have in the non-technical side of things. There's really, from I guess the security aspect, and air gaps and everything else, like you said, there is a lot of bad actors that are trying to take control. We also have to, with our hoists, we have to be careful that they aren't connected at all to the, we still have to get support. So you have to have procedures in place for that support to happen for hoisting, because it's, basically it's a movement of men and material, but the men or the human factor is the most sacred to us, that, that safety around man and equipment, because it goes beyond just productivity, and increased costs. It's insurance payouts, it's damage to equipment, and most of all, somebody could get hurt. And that's the biggest thing that we strive for in our company, is to keep everybody safe so everybody goes home safe.
Thank you for your answers. And our next question is how are your companies using IoT and other technologies in these mines to address these challenges that you've just mentioned? Kelly, let's start with you first this time.
Okay. So there's a variety. I mean, the big thing, I guess we'll look at what COVID has done to us. Mining operations, separating men, how do you create those safety protocols and bring those people to work? And it's not only that, we have an aging population that, miners, like most miners I know are, in their 50s and 40s that are really good miners, and the operation of equipment. I think, the around automation and, robots and bots for helping people, everything that we're doing is we're trying to help the employee either work safe or be more productive in areas, when it takes them 4 hours to put in an Excel spreadsheet, but you can put an automated bot in and it does it in 15 minutes. You know, from the mining's perspective, even, you know, operating drills underground, you know, we've got that mindset of, you know, the old management. We've been mining this way for, you know, hundreds of years, or, you know, even 20 years. Why do I need, you know, an automated piece of equipment or a drill that does the automated drilling? It's because humans tend to get bored at their job. And, you know, I always say I have the perfect network if I didn't have humans on it. It's that ability to utilize all of the IoT devices, integrate those, and then get that up so you can do the, you know, the data analytics around it so that you can improve those processes and drive those cost initiatives that bring costs down for your company. And, you know, it's one of the things that we're working heavily on McEwen, where we're investing in, you know, automated systems for our assay lab, pulverizing, crushing. And the thing is, you know, before you'd have to have an 8-person crew to do 240 samples per day, and the quality control around it was, you know, is there, but there's always that perception, oh, we caught this, or this was a problem, or that was a problem. But when you put the robots in or IoT into that to help that and tie that back into a system, then you don't have that miscommunication or the translation of data, somebody dyslexic typing something in wrong, or any of those kind of deals. It defines our roles of what we're doing in the mining industry, and it's going to help drive costs down, and it's going to help drive innovation, and it's going to help drive safety, among other things. And that's kind of the whole gambit, I guess, is that, you know, we're working towards, you know, not just the automation, but putting a bot in, and now, you know, I don't have 8 people doing it, or we're not plugging paste fill holes because we're not, you know, we're relying on somebody to watch and monitor rather than having the device monitor it, alarm us, and even to the point where, you know, if the operator's not there, that it can do an automated service so that you know, you don't plug $1 million paste fill hole. That's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Thanks, Kelly. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I think Kelly answered that pretty damn good. Thank you. But I guess just to add my slant to it, when I first got involved with process improvement in the mining industry, I went underground for about 3 weeks and sat in the rock breaker booth, observing processes being executed. I sat in trucks, I sat in scoops, and what I called that was DILO observations, or a day in the life of observations, to try to get a handle around what percentage of our time is value-added activities versus non-value-added but necessary, and then pure waste. So the key is to minimize the waste and therefore spend more time in value-added activities. But I find that IoT devices help to evolve our methods of improving and collecting data to interactively manage in-shift performance, so operators can see it and react in shift, as well as storing data for continual improvement and later initiatives. And so I'd say we're tracking process execution performance using IoT devices. We've got sensors on our mobile equipment that gives us real-time position and has essentially allowed us to work with the short interval control management process at the mine. We're also using IoT to notify us when a step in a process has been achieved. And we used to do that type of stuff with like some kind of sensor and a programmable logic controller. But IoT devices are so much more lightweight and easy to use. If you can get something that at least has a firmware update capability so we can keep it secure, it's just so much easier to plop an IoT device in line and start getting data, whether it's wired network or wireless network. We don't have people going up with serial ports and laptops. So I'd say it's made us more efficient and helped us to evolve, which ultimately culminates in what Kelly said, which is providing insights via analytics to help us make better decisions. Thanks.
Thank you both for that. I'm now going to transition the floor over to my co-moderator, Hassan, who will ask the remainder of the questions, starting at question 6.
Thank you, Sharon, and everyone. how easy is to get in touch with companies similar to Peytec to create innovation? Kelly or Mike? Mike is better. Yeah, right now.
Okay. Yeah, I find it to be a little more difficult than I would think it should be, especially with the current pandemic going on, because usually those are the types of connections you make at your PDAC forums and stuff like this. I find the mining industry is not as well represented in other industries are in terms of finding directories to look things up and get in touch with suppliers. So I'm typically, when I have a need, I'm using internet searches. Yes, Google. I'm using word of mouth and contacts from events I've attended in the past to find what's needed. But it's probably something I should spend a little more time doing, because I do find it to be a little too difficult today. I will say more than once I've suffered from using the contact us form on a company's website and either not getting a reply or getting something out of context. So I'd like it to be easier, but working with Peytec has been a dream thus far.
Thank you, Mike. What's your idea, Kelly?
So yeah, Mike hit the nail on the head. I think from my perspective, the mining industry is kind of I think there was so much resistance before, like even, Mike can even probably knows, like, when we put a mine in, they put, leaky feeder for radio signals. They didn't want to use fiber optics, the building of your infrastructure underground and the building of that kind of thing. So it's kind of, looking at it, even Peytec, when, the development of that, he was looking at it from, warehouse standpoint. And I brought it, said, hey, we're going to use it as a warehouse standpoint, but I need it robust and I need it underground and I need, these different, it's looking at different ways of doing things and trying to figure out what value there is in it. And it can be a day-to-day thing. Like, I mean, one of my, things that I kind of talk about when I'm talking to other people is, if you've got the old thermostat in your house and you have the mercury switch, it turned the furnace on and off. And I know the gentleman in Manitoba, Paradise Pump, they came up with the idea for the sub pump, where, before the float would come up, it would hit a connector and stop. Now they put in that mercury switch to turn that on and off, and it became a multi-million-dollar product out in the market. And from that perspective, it's engineers and people who are innovative like Peyman and putting this on and looking at the industry as a whole. Mining is not as open or as visible, especially underground mining. We don't have visibility on our equipment as we used to, as you do on surface. I mean, you can put a camera up and watch, but even then, that information, everybody's coming up with certain things. But again, even MineStar, MineSite, they turn around and yes, it goes off to a satellite system or it feeds off into whatever, but they don't have, again, that built in for underground or that ability to move in that direction. And I think, it's hard to chase, ideas and there's, I think more people need to look at the mining industry. We do so many things that are manual and require a lot of effort, or even that, like IoT devices, they're going to be subjected to environment changes, high heat, high dust, high humidity or non-condensing humidity. I mean, those are the kind of things we faced. Even putting a telephone system underground with Cisco, we'd found that we had to redesign the phone cabinet so that we could use it and utilize it, because as soon as we brought it down to the 5600 level, it would stop working. And it's combination of pressure and heat and moisture that the equipment doesn't run. So I think, as engineers are out there or prospective people are looking for ideas, I think they need to look at mining, because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And to be able to come up with the next big thing or the next best idea, and it's providing that visibility so we can make the appropriate decisions to drive the change in our company, right? I mean, you've got people like Mike out there and people like, my current chairman of the board, Rob, who looks at it and says, this is just, it's so crazy why we mine like this. Why aren't we, you know, even if you're after narrow mining, like, I mean, you're taking a big swath, you know, 12 foot by 7 feet wide, and you get so much dilution when you're only looking for that foot of ore. You know, robot technology, can we not just mine that 1 foot? I mean, let's just go after, you know, instead of having all that dilution and the cost that comes with that and the environmental cost that comes with that. So we're always looking for solutions, and it's from everything from the milling process to environmental. It's all tied in. And I think there's so much on Mike's plate, on my plate, that, you know, when I'm spending time to look for a solution, and those solutions should be coming to us and from reputable builders, or even coming in as a startup and saying, hey, I have an idea, will this work? And it's like I said about the thermostat, it's just, all I want you to do is go out there and look at, you know, what do you think you can do for us? And then come back to us an idea, and maybe we'll sponsor it. Like, we look at all kinds of things and sponsor all kinds of, like Gold Spot, looking at, you know, cameras, using drones now. We were ahead of the curve on using drones for site surveys. For, you know, before you'd have to send out a surveyor and you'd have to do all the points and pull that in. Now we can use LiDAR, and we can use drones, and it takes 15 minutes instead of an entire day to do that kind of survey. And it's utilizing something that we already got today and bringing that forward and bringing that up. Like I said, putting a LiDAR on a drone or, you know, even underground on a mobile piece of equipment, so that we can map stuff out and bring that visibility back. And, you know, when I talk about companies like Goldspot, when they look at core samples and allow geologists to see and you know, how was this rated before? They're doing data analytics on you know, thousands of core samples, and does this match something in that thing? So, you know, like I said, you give a geologist a rock, you'll get 5 different geologists, you get 5 different opinions of what's in it. Whereas now, especially when you're training young people coming up, you know, what did this classify as before? I guess, you know, it's that whole drive for change and that vision, and people have just got to look at the mining industry. And if they start looking at us that this is a tie-in to get, you know, billions of dollars worth of innovation, I mean, we can drive that. I mean, I look at even the piping that we put in, you know, when you're doing paste fill, the sand and the cement that goes down wears out corners. We have companies now that have military contracts that we're designing, you know, the blast material underneath of tanks and mobile equipment for men. And it's because it could absorb shock, and it didn't wear down with that structure that you're using. So again, it's thinking outside of the box, and we need more of that in the mining industry, because like Mike said, it's hard to chase. I mean, we use Google and Bing and word of mouth, and especially with COVID, like, I mean, I was really looking forward to going to mining show in Vegas and looking at new innovative ideas and what somebody else is doing, and even coming up with suggestions. You know, one of the things that, you know, we do, just like I did with Peyman, was suggest, you know, this is a direction that we could go with your product, and build it forward. And now we have a, you know, not just a product for warehouses, but I mean, you have a product for the mining industry and variety of things. Like, we even looked at it from McEwen's side. We're looking at doing traffic control just with his puck system on the truck. We have vehicles that go down a ramp. They're supposed to give way to, you know, the big hauling trucks. Of course, they use a lot of energy or diesel or electric, depending on where you're at. And that movement of material, if you stop that truck, you have to expend so much more energy to get that thing. So now we can have, you know, a traffic system based on, you know, those tags that are on our small vehicles. So there's a kind of things that you're just keep developing on top of technology that exists, without, you know, trying to go and my big thing, I guess, you know, coming back to the technology drive, is that can you imagine being a maintenance supervisor, and you have Sandvik equipment, and you have Epiroc equipment, and you have Atlas Copco, and you have, you know, all the different people out there, and they all have their own separate system for reading what's wrong with the vehicle, what's, use of operator behavior, all that stuff. But I have to look at 5 different screens because nobody has one, they've not gone with just Sandvik because they even don't make McLean bolters. So all that information goes into, and nobody shares that information. So now you've got to develop, Power BI screens and pull that data into another data source. And that's about building, your data warehouse so that you can actually get and build those KPIs out from that ability to move forward. And I've kind of babbled on here for too long now, sorry.
Thank you very much. And last question, what can industry do to improve innovation with ecosystem, and what do you think is the next step in digital advancement in the Canadian industry? Actually, you answered some part of the question, but thank you. Kelly, would you please answer these 2 questions?
I didn't think you want me to.
You're mute.
Okay, so, I think, mining has always been considered, an environmental issue and stuff like that. But I think, one of the big things for now that's driving the innovation in the ecosystem is, it's becoming digital engineers and, environmental engineers and driving that and picking up, different training and building on that, that ecosystem that we need to drive that change. I think the industry is, the technical industry, the technology or IT and engineering industry is moving in that direction. I think we've got the right gambit. It's just, we have to build that buy-in, and it's part of my job and part of Mike's job to go back and say, hey, this is something that we need to build going forward. And this is what's going to help, our industry and our return on investment or even in just the safety factors, right? And the visibility on everything that's out there. I don't want to take too much time here.
Thank you. Mike, what's your idea of these ecosystem innovation in ecosystem and next step in digital development?
Well, I think in one way, something that Kelly said resonated, and that is I once went to, I think it was called Beyond Innovation in Sudbury. I was there 2 years in a row. And one year a gentleman came from Germany, and he presented as a part of a standards body that was reaching out to vendors to help. Like, I have also absorbed the differences in the data from the same equipment, the same data, but totally different formats. I'm receiving it from Sandvik and Epiroc. And this gentleman reached out to them to try standard for interoperability between vendors. And I think if we could do more of that, it would help us to free some brain cells for innovation. And instead of trying to use electronics to absorb these differences so that our end users aren't logging into multiple systems. So Power BI was a good example. But I also want to say that, like, right now today, I want to acknowledge that some of the best minds in the world are very aware of and constantly working to find better ways to minimize our impacts on the environment that we mine within. That's kind of top of mind for us right now. Always is. It's almost like a slot machine. You put in one substance and you get out 3. I know how to deal with one of them, but I don't know how to deal with the others. And I think key to continuing the passion around innovation and harnessing the passion that young people have for environmental issues these days, we need to continue to be transparent and accountable and to foster our youth with challenges and opportunities. For example, University of British Columbia, they're very active in mining with partnerships to the extent where we've had students work with us on specific projects as part of their thesis or their vocation. Same with Cambrian in Sudbury. And I think experiences like that, they leave a lasting impression on a student. And I go back to the first question where, like, I've worked for international corporations, and it was widely seen that North Americans and Canadians in particular are known for their ability to innovate and their ability to find different ways to do things. So we need to recognize that as a strength and keep it going. My first work experience was in the mining industry while I was a student, and 25 years later, here I still am. It's still in mining. I'm sure Kelly will agree that once you get the word mining on your resume, it kind of sticks with you. It's in some ways a small community. But for young people out there, there's a lot of publicly available information. There's good companies produce annually social corporate responsibility reports, and we do 43 101 technical reports. And there's a lot of good information in there about mining that could get someone, with a vocation a start toward understanding the challenges that we face and helping us to achieve the ultimate goal, which is maximum production, everyone making it home safely at the end of the shift, and maybe someday zero waste and repeatable, sustainable processes to that regard. We'd like to leave a mine at the end of its life such that no one ever knew a mine had been there if we can. And toward the next step, I would say the partnerships are key to defragment our innovation ecosystem, because in some ways we have a lot of silos of knowledge. There are different camps around, like Sudbury has a good, healthy, innovating structure in the mining industry, and they're influencing it quite a bit, and they're working off government funding to some extent. We need to continue that. We need to direct it toward our most important goals, which I think I heard Kelly say earlier. We need to focus on production, safety, and minimize our waste. The things in particular I think we need to do moving forward is continue working with autonomous mining and the electrification of vehicles to decrease our emissions and to free up people to focus on more value-added pursuits. I would also say, to tie back to that German fellow, collaborate openly with open data and establish standards across multiple vendors. And I'd say continuing to leverage IoT with machine learning and AI. AI is becoming more accurate than people in many areas, and it can help us become more efficient at addressing our key challenges. There are several things in mind that I would like to model and see what we could do there. And finally, I'd say focusing on what is called, I believe it's a circular economy, which is to design out waste and pollution and to keep products and materials in use and to regenerate natural systems. That's I think it in a nutshell for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Kelly. I hand the floor over to Sharon for introducing the next part. Thanks again.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again to the panelists for your thoughtful responses and your expertise. Since we're running a little bit low on time, we're just going to take 2 audience questions. So in order to ask a question in the panel, you can either, if you want to ask it yourself via voice, type in to the chat, "I want to ask a question," that sentence. But if you want to just ask a question and have us read it, just send it there and we will read it. Okay, we have our first question. So David Lyon, please ask the panelists your question.
Hi guys, thanks. Very interesting topic. You mentioned quite a bit how you've been looking to Google and other things to find your innovation ecosystem. But as I'm working in IoT and studying as well in machine learning, where does someone like me, or what do I Google to find, your pain points? Is it like a job board somewhere where you say, listen, we have a problem with finding machines? I don't know. I can't even begin to understand what all the pain points you are having, but is there a way for that ecosystem to dig into your problems? That's my question.
Mike, do you want to take this first before Kelly?
Sure. That's a very good question, because in our industry, we get together for trade shows. We typically celebrate the successes, and it may seem like those pain points are gone. Usually they're not fully, shall I say, implemented and solved across all domains. So I would say first off is to look at things like POTYA, like trade shows like SIM, and there you'll hear a lot about pain points and things that we've addressed to some extent and other things that we haven't. Another one I would say that is very good is looking at associations like CMIC, because they form working groups around the problem areas that we haven't solved. So you're going to get the most honest contribution there. And not sure if you have to become a full member to get access to, their working groups, but at least you can see the high level types of things that they're working on. Also, there is, are you currently a student?
I am, yeah, but I'm running my own consultancy firm, and at the same time I'm doing school at night to try to grow my knowledge in the machine learning space.
Well, good on you. I wish you good energy to that outcome. I would also say that I've seen people in your situation kind of float an idea out there to people in the mining industry, and they'll get in enough to have a discussion, and you would learn, how we see that could be applied to our challenges. I think a group like CMIC would do that too, but I think actually just going straight to the mining companies and asking who's responsible for innovation and try to get a discussion with them, because we try to spend, I'd say 98% of our time trying things and failing, and then the few that get through. So like we're kind of like aggressively trying to cycle through ideas so that we can see which ones are going to catch on for us. So we're quite willing to have a discussion to that end. Perhaps Kelly, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I could throw in that, there is, you're a student and you're looking at different things. I guess, digital engineering is a piece of the company that's, that we're missing to become resilient and tightly aligned with our operations. So, if you go to IDC, they have all kinds of, engineering things that they look at, Canadian Internet of Things, ecosystems, digital business operations, analytics services. There's a variety out there. There's always something that somebody's innovating on and working towards. I guess, it's hard. I think as much as you could reach out and talk, it's, I don't really have a lot of time, and my guys don't either. We're a small company, and we're trying to get a lot accomplished around what we do. I do, there's industries out there. It's just like, and I talk about, one of the things that we're doing is a robotic arm for our assay lab, and there's companies out there that, they want $1 million to put the same, that same gambit in for you, because, they've been doing it for years. So small companies like Triton Innovation, where, they're doing robotics, but they're using robotics for car parts or heat or something like that, and working with, getting into these small companies and saying, hey, have you looked at mining, or have you looked at different, different industries or different businesses where you could use this robot? One of the best things I'd ever seen on a YouTube was a robot was cooking, and I always thought, how many times does McDonald's and Burger King, people don't show up for shifts because they don't get paid a lot of money, put a robot in there to flip the burgers, right? Like, programming, digital programming, robotics is similar to PLC work. I think there's a lot of things out there that, people just haven't analyzed or looked at, and it's kind of just keeping an open mind to, and I hope we open your mind to those different things that you can look at. Yeah, that's all I have on that one.
Thank you for your response. And our last audience question for the day is by May. Please ask your question.
Hi, thank you. My question is, both of you, I think, talked about a lot of technologies that you either are using at your current company or you are wishing to have, but I recognize that most of them were on-site technologies. So now, if you want to talk about the technologies that mining industry can use offline, for example, I think Kelly talked about ore sampling, and like, for example, we know that there is CT scan technology that you can send ore samples to a facility and they can CT scan it and give you a lot of characterizations data about the ore, which are not easily like used to be easily done before. are the current mining companies open to reach out to these new technologies offline and take advantage of this, like bringing medical technology to the mining processes, for example, but necessarily on site or underground or in the plants? So I would be glad to hear your opinions on this.
So I think, you know, a lot of, because, you know, we do have, you know, in underground mining, we do have, you know, the end of the fiber network, the end of the wireless network. So a lot of our, you know, equipment or man or material tracking is limited to when it comes back into the network and the visibility on that. And I think, you know, as much as, you know, we're all striving to make our operations streamlined and bring that visibility up to, you know, the operational management that's there. We also have to realize that we need to get that to the next step and get that, you know, that transformation or that process integration so we can make those data-driven decisions basically from the corporate on down. So that visibility that we need to provide corporate so that we can look at a mining operation and build it there. So we're always open to anything that's going to provide us that connectivity or allow us to make those data-driven decisions, right? You know, as we move our stuff into the Azure cloud, you know, we're looking at using Power BI or Power on Apps so that we can get that visibility and, you know, those questions, you know, from our perspective, you know, if you've got a piece of equipment down, it's fine that mining operation knows that it's down, but, you know, if it's been down for 5 days, you know, you have to build those kind of alarms in where corporate kind of says, hey, wait a minute, you know, I don't need to know that it's down for 4 hours. You've already had those alarms and those alerts, but then it needs to be built up so that corporate can come back and say, hey, question why something's down or not working, or, you know, in that retrospect. You know, to me, it's all, anything that we're building and moving towards, it's so that we can use that, you know, that ability of that integration so that we can run analysis on that, so we can get a better picture to move forward with, right? Mike, you want to throw something else in on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think I can address a bit the offline aspect of that. Like you're never going to cover mine 100% unless you, like, from the time of constructing it, have it baked into the plan. We have put 218 access points underground in our mine. And if I was to do it today, I would use LTE so that we'd have only one managed device per level. But it's still baked into every solution that we have. We consider the offline functionality. And offline functionality is often challenged by security in that we have a single sign-on system, which I actually designed when I was architect. But it often, you're almost telling a mechanic that you've got to pull a wrench out of the toolkit before they go underground, otherwise they won't be able to use that wrench. So we've had to work around that to have offline functionality that supports, like, creation of a pin technology or something like that, so that it can be launched underground when you're not in a connected scenario. It's becoming less and less of an issue for us, but yes, absolutely, we prefer offline solutions that get the data. It should be as seamless. Like, to me, the ideal offline experience is that there is no difference. It's like you're online, and the technology realizes, hey, I'm in a coverage zone, and some icon that says I've got stuff to sync disappears when it's synced. So that's we actually have some applications that are doing that. I just want to make sure we address that question to the satisfaction of the asker.
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you both. I was just like wanted to know that if you are using any offline technology at the moment.
Yes, so we have edge devices underground that will provide kind of caching of data in situations where it can't be sent. We have mobile applications that will allow you to launch the application with a pin that was created with a fingerprint of the single sign-on token. So that's for health and safety, and it's important for us to be able to efficiently, shall I say, document the scene of an incident when one occurs, and there's a lot of responsibility on supervisors underground to do that. And in the past, it's like you take a camera and you go somewhere else and you upload photos and then you attach them in using a web app. Mobile devices that work offline, you just do it in one shot. It's so much easier. So yes, any application we have right now, we're for the second time looking at a digital form solution because we have all kinds of permits and vehicle inspections and safety assessment forms that have to be completed. And paper is not the best from a data management perspective. They can get dirty, it can be illegible, they can get lost, maybe even before it gets to health and safety, they don't find it. So we can use mobile applications which work offline to enforce good standards with data management. So I don't have to worry about whether it's 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. or if it's 24-hour clock. The data standards are enforced. And those applications, all the ones I've looked at, I've disqualified any that don't have offline functionality, even though we have 218 access points underground. So yes, that is very top of mind for us, I would say.
And the same with us as well. We have a variety of applications that we've got to use remote and going underground with a laptop or with, you know, a handheld device so you can follow up on incident reports. And as well for us, you know, we've even developed to the point where we have disparate systems. We have to, you know, we have to bring those back in and bring that data in. So how do you log that and build that? So we've had apps built for us, you know, even just around chain of custody of our chip samples and muck samples that are coming up into our assay lab. So, and then form builders we're using at one other site for doing that kind of reporting. You know, it's all about, you know, the big thing is you have to understand a guy's underground for 10, 12 hours, or even if he's a shifter and he's in that for that time, there's stuff that can be missed or forgotten. Especially if you're looking at, oh, you know, I went to, you know, 7 different headings where the guys are working and I need rock bolts and I need, you know, screen here. And I need to make sure that, you know, the next shift is ready to go. And that whole transition has to be in place and to, you know, they can't sometimes walk back and remember all that. They have to be able to enter all that. And then when they get the connectivity, like Mike says, boom, it's uploaded into the system. And your team's ready to go. It's all about working together and getting that vision and having that ability so that you have that seamless transition.
There is a key point that I'd like to add in that, and Kelly, I know this will resonate with you, is in the mining industry, if they're underground and they're under a tremendous amount of pressure to get tons, safe. If something doesn't work and it gets in the way, they will throw it aside. They might even smash it. But they're very quick to abandon a solution if it doesn't produce.
Absolutely, and it has to be able to. Yeah, they'll take a wrench and smash a computer screen because they don't have the connectivity to do something. It is very much what he said. I think, you know, the analysis around everything that goes on, it stems that ability to have that visual. And, you know, one thing I didn't mention was, you know, when we looked at trucking from underground, you know, it's all about how you're looking at it. You know, we had the shift all start at the same time. They go down and, you know, all of a sudden management's looking and saying, hey, the trucks, you know, how come the truck's not going up the ramp with the load of ore? And so now the shifter's down there yelling at the guys to get going. And you got equipment running up the ramp half full, because, you know, they all got there at 7 o'clock, 5 trucks, 5 guys, they did their walk around, their 10-minute. Now they're, you know, it takes 15 to 20 minutes to load the truck, and then the truck goes up the ramp. The problem is that, you know, we have to look at it from the perspective, can we stagger those shifts? And, you know, if the guy gets down and then you have that truck loaded before the next guy's, you know, he's just finished his circle check on his vehicle and made sure it's going. So that information's flowing up. And then because, you know, again, we only have visibility when they're being loaded at, you know, at the loadout, and then when they're unloading, because they've gone, you know, we may not have that visibility when they're in the ramp. And then we, you know, if you're running a vehicle that's half empty or, you know, or isn't empty when it's coming back down, there's a cost associated with that. So it is all about, you know, the connectivity and keeping, you know, operation visible.
Did everybody else lose him?
Yes, unfortunately.
Even when it's not to the network. And then again, you know, the.
Okay. Oh,
We got you now.
yeah. Well, thank you, Mike and Kelly, for your very thoughtful responses to your questions, and both from the audience and the formal panel. Thank you so much for taking your extra time out of your evenings and to share your knowledge with us. I'm sure our membership, our attendees, and really appreciate it. I definitely have learned something new tonight.
I did notice there was another question there. Is the muck puck recoverable and when? I seen that on from Tom. Did you want us to address that?
Sorry for the sake of time, so that Peyman has enough time for his presentation. We're just gonna move on, but feel free to address it via chat, just so that we don't keep our attendees too late today. But thank you. You feel free to address it via the chat or connect outside of this event. I'm just going to start the next part of our presentation, but thank you for noticing that. So let me share my screen. So we're moving on to the next part of our event. So I am very glad to introduce our speaker for tonight, which is Peyman Moeini, PhD candidate, PNG PMP. He is an entrepreneur engineer with a track record of launching several successful Internet of Things and artificial intelligence products in various fields such as mining, manufacturing, logistics, and retail. Peyman has won more than 30 innovation and entrepreneurship awards in the IoT and AI fields, and he is the founder and CEO of Peytec, a smart industrial IoT and AI company that builds and sells hyperactive indoor GPS and sensing systems. Peytec, as you all know, is the 2019 winner of the Engineering Project of the Year award given out by the PO York chapter. That is us in the small company category. In addition to that, under Peyman's leadership, Peytec was announced to be among the top 100, among the top 10 most promising IoT companies in Canada in 2019. I will now hand over the floor to Peyman to start his presentation.
Thank you very much. So give me a sec, I'm just gonna share my screen. So I think the introduction already covered a lot of what we discussed. Before I start the presentation, I wanted to thank Mike and Kelly for their insightful information. I really enjoyed it, and I think with your chapter with 10,000 members, all in technology and engineering, it would be very important for them to be exposed to the mining sector, as there are very brilliant people who could really help the mining sector. So for those of you who don't know about Peytec, I think we've talked about it. So we are a smart IoT and AI company, and we make hyper accurate indoor GPS and sensing systems. The applications are mostly in inventory tracking, asset management, as well as real-time quality control. We work with some of the well-known customers such as Toyota, Shared Industries, Kirkland Lake Gold, as well as Hudbay. We've been featured into a number of magazines, which we are honored to be, such as the Globe and Mail. So this event is around innovation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our product and that we had worked on in 2019. And I wanted to bring a very important point to all those people who are looking to embrace innovation, as well as bring innovations into larger companies. And just wanted to touch on one of the key points that really made our project successful. So entrepreneurs, like people, technologists who come up and design some of the best technologies out there who could solve a lot of big problems, are just one side of the equation. For these technologies to be embraced, we need the intrapreneurs. These are people within larger companies who would work with you, and they just make sure they understand what you do, and they understand how they should take what you have, which is a small part of their operation, and how they would incorporate it and companies that would take and embrace, let's say, some of these technologies and innovations are the captains of a big ship like I'm showing over here. And this ship is not on shore. It's moving really fast, and the goal is to make it faster, to make it safe, and an enjoyable environment. And here comes the entrepreneur with their boats, and then we got some technology and innovation that you want to introduce to this ship to make it better. When you compare it to the size of these two, to see they're not really comparable. So the reason why intrapreneurs are so important is because they will take what you have and they need to introduce it to this ship that's already moving and operating, and they have to take all the risk into consideration. The risk in financial risk, safety risk, operational risk. There are many risks that's involved into introducing innovation into an already working mega operation. And then the marriage of these two is really where you could see a successful innovation. This is me after 10 years of working with different customers in different fields have sort of come up to this. So the reason why I thought it was important to understand this is that when it comes to intrapreneurs, the people who are so open to listen to what you have and also open to share their problems, their times is very limited. That when they spend an hour with you, it's like you spend 2 days of your own time, because they're dealing with tens or hundreds of projects, and they tell you what the problem is, and they have to make sure the ship's moving while they're adding and modifying the system. So the reason why I'm thinking that this is very timely to talk about is because from a technology standpoint, we globally are going through a transformation, which is called Industry 4.0, the next industrial revolution, which is largest than the revolution of when internet was introduced into the world. And now we look at it even on this call. To be larger than what we see. So the excitement, the activities that's happening around these different fields that you can see, from network and cloud, collaborative robots, sensors and IoT, artificial intelligence, this basically builds, this is a metaphor, a mega powerful person who has sensing capabilities as well as thinking and actuation and all those things into one. And when you think about this, the size of this revolution is so much that for a lot of the technologies have to come together and work shoulder to shoulder to make it work. And the people who would need to incorporate all of these technologies and make the ship run faster and safer are the intrapreneurs. And this is why I thought Mike and Kelly will be the perfect people for you to meet. And I'm sure they know examples of people alike. And specifically in the mining sector, in Canada, throughout the experience that I've had in retail, manufacturing, events, agriculture, horticulture, when you look at all these different sectors, mining is considered as one of the strongest sectors of the Canadian market. For it is that a lot of the headquarters are located in Canada, which makes innovation a lot easier. So most of the manufacturing companies that are out there in Canada are very hard to tap into, because for a real innovation to happen, you need to end up in headquarters, which are usually located outside Canada. But mining is an industry that is very well positioned, that which is around integrity and honesty and safety. Like the way these mines are operated are absolutely safe. The safety of people are the #1 objective for these mines, versus the objectives might be different in other mines based on what I've heard in different countries. So both from the opportunity to embrace innovation, both from the fact that the objective of these innovations is to make these mines run in phase of Professional Engineers of Ontario. I strongly believe and support that the mining sector should be taken very well seriously, and we have to find ways to support this industry. So I'm going to walk you through our story. So I think Kelly touched on that to some point. We started this journey with me presenting about our product that was used in the manufacturing sector, and literally Kelly came to me and said, I have an idea. How about we do this and that? So the person that is the captain of that large ship is now want to incorporate something that would be beneficial into their operation. So think about the size and how we had to react. And then this is how the story started. So we, as people with strong technology background, we immediately could identify what we could do in order to solve this problem. And then just talking about the problem, which we slightly touch on, was that, you know, when we in mining sector, we blast the mine, and then we get a piles of dirt, which we call them muck. And then this muck, it could be ore or waste or base, or gold. They have different labels, which means different things. So depending on what they are, they have to go into a certain route. So let's say ore goes to the ore route, which is the destination for this ore pile, what we call. And then sometimes there's a mistake and something else ends up in a wrong location. And think about these mega operations. There are thousands of these bins moving around. Trucks are everywhere underground, 3-4 kilometers. Things are happening simultaneously. There's safety involved. There's blasting that needs to happen. Trucks move down these hallways, and then people have to have their schedule set up. So this is a complex operation. Like, you can't imagine how complex this can get, like underground, and you have to make sure this big ship runs like a clock and doesn't stop, because if it does, it costs the mine just too much to operate further. So now we have a portion of this mine, which is this pile, that needs to be saved. The opportunity is approximately $70,000 per load, and this could be cost more or less, but then now we have an opportunity to make this ship run faster, but then we just don't want to create any risk that stops the ship. So before we step in, there was other technologies out there, such as RFID, where the idea was people, some companies offer this product, which is an RFID, and when you throw it into a muck pile, it's supposed to track where this pile of dirt is. But then the problem was RFID doesn't really work when it's buried under 20 tons of dirt. It just doesn't physically can communicate. So the way this problem was being solved with this specific technology was that they put these RFID into this pile, and once these piles get into the conveyor belt, then they could detect it. The problem with that was sometimes these tags were not getting detected because they're not designed for this specific application, and therefore they had very low accuracy and sometimes like 60 to 70% reliability. And then they had to be incorporated too late down the process. So by the time this dirt gets into the conveyor belt, it's already on the process, and it's really hard to remove or modify the process. So when we stepped in, we introduced this product called the McEwen, which is a tag that can transmit its signal over 20 tons of muck pile and still work. And what we've done is we've made an accuracy of 99%, a reliability of 99% with our tag. So we've done a complete test and made sure this product works. So the important part was that we had to practice as a company so much that when we got into the mine without any problems, the system gets up and running, because the last thing we want is to interfere with the operation. And we had to do it so precisely so that this becomes seamless integration to a big ship that is moving super fast. And we were able to accomplish that, and that came with a lot of work, sacrifices, and failure inside of our company in order for us to get this to where it is, which our customer could see it as functional and seamless and be no problem. So the system that we designed, again, this is the next gen, very sophisticated technology, but that wasn't just a part. The incorporation was another big phase, which consists of two parts: a smart gateway and the muck cubes. We call them muck pucks as well. And we introduced our underlying technology, wireless positioning and sensing network, which is a network that combines localization and sensing to enable a reliable, flexible, and low latency network. And then with that came other devices. So there was a mobile app as well as a web application, so a website where users could log in. So they would literally take the mobile phone, they scan the tag, the barcode on the tag, they assign it to let's say a heading ID, or assign a name to the tag, so we could associate it with an object or a pile. And then as this tag moves around, the readers pick them up on the way, and then we report this data in real time, so that people, not only on the surface, but people in the headquarters in different cities or different countries could actually see the data in real time in terms of where these piles are. So imagine something that is going underground 3 kilometers, somebody somewhere else in a different city will know where this pile is. And this power of visibility is what the mine was asking us to do. And we had to incorporate it on in an operation that is already fully functional. So the two case studies we've done was, one is around reliability and the other one is around accuracy. So with reliability, we demonstrated 99% reliability, and the way we did it is we had to throw a number of tags and see if we could detect them around the process. What you can see on the right-hand side, this is just a map of a mine, and you can see it could be very complex. It's a 3D map, and trucks could go in any direction. These tunnels could go in any direction. They're not straight. Sometimes they're going up, sometimes they're going down. It is one of the most complicated maps that we've ever seen in the history of our company. It's not comparable to hospitals. It's not comparable to manufacturing plants. It is a complex operation. It is underground. So in terms of the benefits of the system, and what we have done was that because we could detect these tags when they're buried underground, what this enabled is that we could actually create preventative functionalities. So we introduced some LEDs where, when the truck drivers are having a load of dirt or pile, so like this is the truck, as you can see, like right here. So imagine from up there, this is on the surface, this is on the ground level. From the top, all these muck or dirt ends up in the back of this truck. The LED here would flash depending on what material is there using our tag, so then these truck knows where to go. So now we have introduced a preventative tool that lets the driver know where they should go. And putting that into perspective, we actually saw a very aggressive drop into the accuracy or an improvement into the accuracy level of the O routing and tracking. I didn't put the percentages on purpose because I did not want to share confidential information, but you can see there's actually a drop in this, which is quite significant. So this operation before our system was running, and it was running like a ship, and then we stepped in by respecting and understanding the requirements of our us as technologies, that we have to maintain risk levels and we have to make sure that we do a smooth integration. And we came up with this result, which made the operation run faster, as well as made more opportunities for our company to move forward. And this is the real definition of innovation that we have seen in our company, is that collaboration between the intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs. Everybody comes with their strength. We had no clue how mining worked, but then our clients, Kelly and Mike, that we work with, were very patient to explain us the processes, make sure we go through the learning process, and then we could really perform and help address the problems. So this is an example of like one of our very primary tests. We basically put one of our tags in there. This is just, we say we could do it, and then we had to do a test. And then here we dump all this material, and we could still pick up the signal about 100 meters or 300 feet away from that pile. And this is when things started. Like imagine, now that we're speaking, we've sold thousands of these tags, they've been deployed, we've tested them over and over, and now it's a great story. But then when we were here, I could tell you that everybody was nervous because we were moving out of our comfort zone. So this was a zone where the mine was running, we were sort of doing our own thing, and now we had to push the boundaries. So as we've done that, we came through this process, we've won the best project of the year award from PEO. We made it to the top 10 most promising IoTs in Canada, and then we just kept going. So, but I wanted to tell you, at this point, this was the point that it was very uncomfortable, because we had to compete with some of the largest companies who worth billions of dollars, and they have hundreds of thousands of engineers sitting there, and they're providing all these complicated solutions. So putting all this into perspective, we now have this product that's readily available, and we're very proud to do it. And I wanted to conclude this, is that innovation is not an event, it's not an accident. We have to keep innovating, and we have to keep building things. And every time we do, we get better at it, and we inspire more people to join in and support the mission. On that note, I would like to end my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Peyman, for your wonderful presentation. Just before we go into your networking session where people can also ask questions, just wanted to remind everyone that there will be a feedback survey that will be going around soon after the event. And again, just a reminder, if you want to be the next Peytec or the 2020 Engineering Project of the Year, applications are open until January 20th of 2021. So please feel free to, we encourage your applications, and we want to celebrate all of your successes. I will now hand it over to Reza, who will I will now begin the meet and greet session with Peyman. So Reza is going to help moderate that. But does anybody have any questions?
Sorry. Thank you, Peyman, and thank you, everybody. I have a quick question. Maybe it is a little stupid. What is the size of this instrument that you invented?
The size of this instrument is 5 centimeters by 3 by 2. So it's actually, if you could see my screen, I could just let me just picture it. This is the size of it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So you can see my hand. So it's a small cube.
And do you have anything to make it smaller or something better?
Well, so so one of the products which we haven't announced, so it's in the works. We have made a reusable version of this product just for environmental friendly purposes, which is smaller, is stronger, it costs less, and it will be available in the first quarter of 2021. And it's actually in the shape of a puck. So the product is called Muck Puck. So that's actually a puck. And our slogan is Muck Puck for your truck.
Thank you.
And now we'd like to ask everyone, since it will be a networking session that a meet and greet session, you can turn your webcams back on. But Reza, you take it away in terms of the moderating.
Yeah, David Lyons had a question.
Oh yeah, no, it's actually a simple solution to a very big problem. So I think you're going to have lots of success. But the questions, it's actually more business related. Like, how are you finding scaling the idea or scaling the company now that you've had your initial successes?
That's a very good point, and I think you have some IoT background, which is interesting. So, so in terms of technology, scaling the technology, this is something that and we don't have a problem with doing it because of our experience, we build it to scale. There's something else is called like scaling the actual company. So we built a lot of work to prepare the company for a larger scale growth. So that comes stability as well as a long-term vision, the right team in place. So from board of advisory, board of directors, the executive team, management team, like putting all the layers in place, making sure that all the gaps and weaknesses in the company are addressed. And this is the stage that that would make this scaling working. So if you talk to a lot of technologies, like the technologies work, is scalable, is probably one of the best, but then sometimes the barrier becomes that that infrastructural requirement.
Thank you, Peyman. I believe Bahman had raised his or her hand, and they may have a question.
Yeah, first of all, that was a fascinating talk, and I'm glad to see you, Peyman, after a few years over a Zoom call. So my question is, actually I have a couple of questions. The first one is, so if I understood correctly, you have to extract the mock cube after the pile is underground and then reuse it in another round of transportation of the material from the mine. So those are actually reusable items. So what is the procedure for that? So it looks like there's a whole bunch of pile, and you have to extract your transponders and then you reuse them. The other one is actually a more generic question about like how you want to, or how are you able to expand to other industries in terms of what are the similarities that you can see in infrastructure industries where you can reuse and reapply the same solution to them?
Those are really good questions. So about your first question, in most of the mining processes, there's a large magnet that is installed on top of the conveyor belt, which is designed to remove metallic parts like wires and etc. from the muck, which are called impurities. So our tag, this is the tag that we're releasing. That tag is designed in such a way that gets picked up by the magnet. So this process is actually an automated process, and it doesn't require people to be involved, and it's safe. And then we don't expect for all of the tags to be retrieved, but for the portion of it that gets retrieved, it's getting retrieved automatically. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
So about your second question, which was about the application. So this is a very good question, and this is something that we work closely with our existing customers. It goes in both ways. So we build our technology for the long run, and our business, the work we do is indoor location tracking and sensing. So our platform could do most of the sensing needs that are out there, as well as localization that comes with mapping capabilities, as well as tracking capabilities with different levels of accuracy. So we have some of our products could track the location of things with an accuracy of 10 centimeters. Some of the devices gives you an accuracy of 5 meters, but they are very inexpensive. This product with MuckPuck, this is designed to be high penetration so that it could work in very extreme and noisy environments. All of these are bundled and working off the one common platform where the users could see the data, they could see the tags moving in real time, as well as they could set various alerts so that they could see all this movement. Integration is an important part of the system as well, which enables automation. This is when we would get into PLCs and more advanced levels into robotics. So I think when you ask this question, you may have something specific. Do you see any application for this specific product elsewhere?
Nothing top of my head, but that certainly actually can be applicable to a lot of emerging industries, emerging in the sense that they're actually moving towards making more technology-based solutions. So I can imagine there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I'm glad to see them in future in your business line of work.
Thank you.
All right. I wanted to, I can see a raised hand here. Tom, may I ask you to unmute yourself?
Yes, I have one question. I think I'll direct it to Mike and Kelly, if you don't mind. And it's a question about the use of the MuckPuck. If you are using the information that you garner as you watch your ore go through and up to your concentrator or your mill, are you using that information to help build a geometallurgical model by any chance?
I can answer that if you like from our perspective. The answer is yes. So before, it's not just for waste or muck that's coming through. Actually the puck, we already know what is in the pile. So the pile underground is, whether it's ore or waste, and what we're trying to track at this moment in time was ore and the movement of the ore and the movement of the waste. So the idea is that we already have the visibility on what it grades at. So, and that's what I was alluding to before, is that as the movement of that ore comes to surface and we pile it, now we know exactly how many tons of that specific grade is in that ore pile. That will tie back into our PLC system, which was GE at the time. And then we tied into a historian system that allows us to, that builds all of our historical data around our pumps and our processes and everything else. So it's allowing us to not only do from a maintenance standpoint, but it allows us to control the feeds coming into the mill and allows us to direct how much reagents we're doing. So the cost savings alone around having that visibility are 2 to 3% just on the reagents inside the mill. And then there's that outside cost benefits around PM maintenance for maintenance or repair maintenance rather than breakdown maintenance. So we can decide when we're going to do that maintenance and actually track that ability. This POTYA system is a fabulous system, and I think all mine sites should be using it. It helps around the control, it helps around the movement, and provides the management, the visibility to be able to make decisions in real time, rather than, oh, we're processing and now we're doing a test prior to it hitting the mill. We're testing the grade as it's coming in because we don't know what's in the ore pile. So, but now we'd already know, because we know in this pile here, it grades this, in this pile here, it grades that. So you don't have that non-visibility, like as he showed the loader dump that pile on top of that muck. We know what's in that muck pile, and we can separate our piles based on grade and how we can then do that production. So the metallurgist has a very visible idea what's hitting the mill and what he needs to put in place.
Great, thank you.
I could add a bit from the Hudbay perspective, if we got time. We conducted a 3-stage experiment at our process plant, looking at the impact of stabilizing incoming feed in terms of the grades into the mill. And we started with a simple little XRF gun, which is like emitting some kind of radiation to detect the properties of the rock. And we had a standard for how we would sample the piles. And we proved against our on-stream analyzer that the results were consistent. Then we also invoked a kind of a process to organize the yard in such a way that it would be effective at utilizing this gun process to stabilize the incoming feed to the mill. And then the 3rd stage was what impact we'd have on recoveries, agreeing to certain ranges. We wanted a positive impact on copper and gold. We wanted less than a certain decrease in zinc and silver. And it was overwhelming success. Our recoveries were at least 3% positively impacted by that blending regimen coming into the mill. But we haven't used the muck bucks for that. We haven't put that as part of our initial use case because we feel that they'll be so mixed up by the time they get to the mill for us, because we dump them through the rock breakers onto the conveyor. We bring them up in skips. We put them in bins. They get hauled off-site for crushing, and then they show up at the mill and get dumped again. So I would like to do that, but I think our current surface handling mixes stuff up a little too much for that. So we're looking at other methods, but it would be nice if it did. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sound great. Thank you so much, Kelly, Mike. So the session, the official part, the part was that was for the presentation is over now. Now we have a meet and greet with Peyman. So if anyone want to ask any question from Peyman, from the specifically from the product that he produced, or from anything related to that, this is the time to for a chat. And again, before COVID, we could have a better face-to-face sessions with a few cups of coffee, but now this is the situation. Again, thanks to the technology, we can do it by this Zoom application, which is still good. So if anyone want to ask a question, feel free to ask. Peyman, do you want to ask any question from the audience?
No, thank you. And I think I addressed most of people's questions. So I'm not sure how we were doing with time. I thought we were doing until 8:45, so I could stay if you think that's necessary, but if there's no question.
we can, we're pretty flexible at the end time. So if you like to stay and that work, we can go until 9 o'clock if that's okay with you.
Sure, I'm fine with that. That shouldn't be a problem.
Perfect. So we encourage everyone to, you know, turn on your webcams and open up your mics, since it's no more like a networking read and greet session. So it's more so like a chat and like multi-way. So if anyone has any questions or would like to introduce themselves and remark about how what they've learned in the session, that's also good. I know personally I've learned so much through this session alone. Like I was sitting in last year on Peyman's presentation for the project of the year award finalist presentation, and I remember Peyman's being a standout because it was so cool. But now it's great to see also Kelly and Mike giving the entire perspective, the whole picture about the challenges and all, and both the human, the non-technical and technical, the machines and the human aspect involved with the mining and the material tracking and movement, all the way to why everything works and the development of everything. As Peyman has said, it's innovation doesn't happen, you know, overnight. It takes a lot of development and brainstorming new ideas and like understanding your client and everything. So that's, I really enjoyed that. Does anybody else have any remarks?
I wanted to add something because my background is also mining engineering, and I enjoyed it a lot, especially from the point that I worked a little bit on mine tailing, and I knew that, you know, sometime in we have to again remine a mine again by advancing technology. Sometime the technology advances in a way that we can get more, let's say, or let's say, because everything is in terms of ppm. So as technology advances, we can get more ore from the tailing even. So that was really interesting because it's like the management of that tailing is also very important. So I was thinking that maybe we can use this technology to basically put a mark on the tailing, that which tailing has how much ore in it, you know, for later on, maybe 50 years from now, we want to reuse it. Maybe we can use it that time. I don't know, that was the thing that came to my mind. Peyman, do you have any idea about that?
I'm the guy with the tag. I think maybe Kelly and Mike could elaborate on that.
So let me ask you in this way. This device that you have, does it have any battery that has a half-life or something?
The device have battery. The battery lasts between a few months to a couple of years, depending on usage. So it's an event-based. It's sensitive to movement. So if it stays there, then it doesn't really frequently communicate, which gives it a long battery life.
Right. Yeah, because the battery is one of the things that everybody's, you know, that's the challenging thing these days, I think. Even
I can tell you, like with our company, we work a lot around batteries, so we always make it like the ultra lowest possible battery life. So we have our special designs that, you know, some of the devices could last up to 10 years. We never claim it as part of our brochures because we haven't really tested it for that long, but then theoretically it would last for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah, in that way, maybe we can use it, you know, for that reason as well. Any other question, anyone? Feel free to ask question, even, you know, other 9 technical questions completely Okay, so if you want to see what Peyman is doing with his spare time, that is also fine.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever IoT topics comes up, there's always a question about the security of the data. So I was wondering, like, how that plays into this specific application of the IoT and the sharing the data in a mining environment. How much concern is involved over security of the data and breaches into that network of information, which is actually kind of like representing probably the transactions and the payloads in the mine, and anything that you can, or that's kind of like an open question to anyone has experience in that, specifically Peyman, who is actually implementing the system, whoever wants to chime in. But I would be interested to know that aspect of the application as well.
Sure, I could make some comment from our end. So we built the security into multiple layers of the system. So when it comes to the lower level, when it's the tag and the gateways, the security becomes more challenging because of the battery problem. So we have used some of the IoT methodologies to secure the data. This is the data over the air. And the higher levels, we also have built-in securities with the platforms that we use. So the data is encrypted, and then we've built a lot of the security around it. My specific background is more on the hardware, so I could speak in a lot more depth into that. Our engineering director, who's not on this call, he's the person who could really tell you about the specific. I mean, I have it in the documents, but I don't think I could pull it up. But yes, the security is built. So the way, part of the security is that the data are not all captured in one place. So, and then the way they get fused together is at the back end where it's encrypted. So it's very difficult to break into. But we always improve it, as you know. So we have another rev that we're going through as we speak.
I could also add, if I may, that we have kind of pre-built solutions that are appropriate for the situation. For example, we have 3 networks that are available underground. The first one is called a process control network or industrial control system network. And that is the most secure network. It will never see internet, never have direct connection to internet. And the rule is you never connect across networks. It's always from one network to the next and then to the next. So Peyman solution goes on to what we call our data collection and monitoring network, which is pretty self-explanatory in the name. It also does not see the internet directly. And what we do is we just open 443, so the secure port through the firewall, to allow this information to get into the software as a service application. So there's very, shall I say, quite a few layers of security in between. We always handle security as an onion with multiple layers. And we expect, like, we don't just hope to keep people out. We expect that people are going to come in. And once they're in, it comes down to who knows the network better. So we've structured the network in a way that has certain attributes in place that are fit for a certain purpose. And Peyman solution fits into that data collection and monitoring network perspective. I hope that helps.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. So it's 1 minute past 9. Sharon, do you think that we can continue, or?
I think we can end this session here. I think there's been some good discussion and good networking.
Awesome.
So thanks everyone for attending this event. Thank you to all of our panelists, Kelly and Mike, as well as our Peyman, our featured presenter, and our attendees and our volunteers who helped make this event possible. This is such a great and informative, unique event. We don't have mining events quite so often, or about IoT and tech. So it's really, really cool to have all of you were instrumental in making this event possible. Have a great night. Enjoy your week before Black Friday.
Awesome. And I'm going to thank you on behalf of PE or York chapter. I wish you a very good night.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to connect with anybody else, feel free to put your LinkedIn links in the chat. I'll just be staying around for 5 minutes, but otherwise we'll be ending the meeting soon. Mike and Kelly, if you two want to connect, I can connect you. Well, I can connect you with each other's email should you want that.
That would be great. Thank you. And thank you very much for hosting us. And Peyman, once again, congratulations. Hope you continue great success.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Mike, for not making me look too bad out there.
It takes two.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Right. Thanks,
good
Mike.
evening.
Thanks,
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.